Hello YouTubers, Dr. Dave here. Today I'm going to talk about religious freedom. First I want to go back to the beginning of this idea in the United States towards the end of the 18th century, when emerging science and philosophical ideas of the Enlightenment emphasized reason, analysis, individualism, rather than the traditional line of authority. These ideas eventually led to the two pivotal revolutions, the American and the French. Both these revolutions were made possible by the growing societal rejection of the idea of a divinely appointed monarchical rule. Nowhere were these ideas more prevalent and influential than in France, but America provided fertile ground also. America had a large population of extreme Protestants who fled Europe to enjoy freedom to live according to their beliefs without persecution of the state churches, and without being forced to pay taxes to support said institutions. With the American Revolution, the idea of religious freedom became the law of the land. Religious freedom in this climate meant that it was forbidden to form a state church, and that there would be a live and let live attitude regarding religious practice, care being taken that the largest denominations could not wield power to coerce and crush the minorities in the secular civic realm. Once again, religious freedom is in the forefront of current affairs today, as conservative Christians refuse to accept the law concerning gay marriage. We can cite the now famous case of a bakery turning down gay clients for wedding cake, saying that participating in a same-sex wedding would be a violation of their religious beliefs. This example raises a difficult question. Can a business deny service to customers who hold different beliefs and live accordingly simply because they do not agree? The answer to our question is yes. Businesses can deny services to those with different beliefs in many states right now. This is so because of the so-called restoration of religious freedom laws. These restoration of religious freedom laws are a direct reaction to the legalization of same-sex marriage. However, these laws are generally broadly written, thus legalizing actions that their authors and supporters surely didn't think about while narrowly focusing on gay marriage. These restoration of religious freedom laws would, as written, allow Christians not to serve Muslims or Jews, or vice versa. It would allow Christian scientists who do not believe in modern medicine denial of physicians and nurses from their businesses. It has been, and could arguably again be used for whites to deny services to blacks, as there are Christian sects, such as the Southern Baptists, which have believed, and some that perhaps still do hold religious belief in segregation. In fact, the same religious freedom arguments which are currently being raised regarding LGBT concerns and same-sex marriage were also used in the 1950s and 60s with regard to segregation and interracial marriage. Example: Theodore Bilbo of Mississippi, who served in the United States Senate from 1935 to 1947, for him racism was more than an ideology, it was a sincerely held religious belief. In his book entitled Take Your Choice, Separation or Mongrelization, Bilbo wrote that, quote, "Purity of race is a gift of God, and God in his infinite wisdom has so ordained it that when man destroys his racial purity, it can never be redeemed. There is every reason to believe that miscegenation and amalgamation are sins of man in direct defiance to the will of God," end quote. As early as 1867, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court upheld segregated railway cars on the grounds that, quote, "the natural law which forbids racial intermarriage and the social amalgamation which leads to a corruption of races is as clearly divine as that which imparted to the races different natures," end quote. This same rationale was later adopted by state Supreme Courts in Alabama, Indiana, and Virginia to justify bans on interracial marriages, and by justices in Kentucky to support residential segregation and segregated colleges. After the Supreme Court ordered public schools integrated in Brown v. Board of Education, many segregationists cited their own faith as justification for official racism. The restoration of religious freedom laws, in fact, do not restore anything except the legal ability to discriminate based upon bias or hatred. In this case, it is the gays and lesbians that are the focus, but it could be applied to any other group of people, as I've illustrated. True religious liberty is intact and does not need to be restored. At least for the time being, each of us is free to worship in the way we choose, or not at all. I say for the time being because there are some Republican presidential candidates who insist that America is a Christian nation and that their particular brand of Christianity should become the state religion, exactly the thing that the Founding Fathers wished to be free of. George W. Bush, who I generally don't agree with, but in this case I do, recently spoke about this as he addressed the graduating class of Southern Methodist University. He said, quote, "You can be hopeful because there is a loving God. Whether you agree with that statement or not is your choice. It is not your government's choice. It is essential to this nation's future that we remember that the freedom to worship who we want and how we want, or not worship at all, is a core belief of our founding." End quote. Religious freedom means that we are able to worship as we choose or not at all. However, in the public realm of commerce, the largest circle possible must be drawn to include all the nation's citizens in equitable exchange. With regard to the restoration of religious freedom laws, I'll end with a quote from the noted Christian author Anne Lamott, who says, "You can safely assume that you've created God in your own image when it turns out that God hates all the same people you do." Thanks for watching.